Hi everyone, welcome to Jawaras. In this video, we will continue working on the previous project. In the previous video, which is this one, we have seen how to send API requests from Angular app to secure Spring Boot backend. So you can find that video here. I will put the link in the description. Also, you can find the source code in this GitHub repository. In this repository, you can go to this branch number 2, and then you can find the code which we did in this video. So I will put both of these links in the description. Now, there we have seen how to send requests from Angular to secure Spring Server. Now, in this video, we will see how to make our own login form in Angular. So up until now, we have been using the login form which is provided by Spring Security by default, or the basic HTTP authentication pop-up to authenticate the user. Now we will create our own login form in Angular. So now here is my Angular app is running in watch mode. So it will detect the changes in source code of Angular and it will rebuild it. And let me open the VS code. So this is the VS code. Now first of all, I want to add some bootstrap to Angular project so that it looks reasonable. So you can go to getbootstrap.com website and run this command to get the bootstrap in your Angular project. Now after that, you need to do one more thing. Once the bootstrap package has been installed in node modules directory, you need to add this path in the styles array of angular.json so that the bootstrap styles will be available in the global context. Okay, that is the bootstrap part. Now, since I want to focus more on security rather than how to do like routing, how to create forms and everything in the Angular, what I did is uh, I have written some of the Angular code already. Let's see what I have already done. So this my Angular app is running. Now I need to start the Spring server. For that, yes, can start my server. And now let's go to 8081 Jawaras as the username and TWS as password. Don't save. Now what I did, I created a navbar in app.component.html. So I will explain that. We go to app.component.html. This is the navbar. It has two links, one for /bank path, another for /login path. And then here we have router outlet. So router outlet tag is the tag where the routing begins. So whenever we change the route from here, the corresponding components will be visible, yeah, at this place at router outlet tag. So now we need to define what does this bank and login means. So that we define in app.module.ts. If you go to app.module.ts, we have a routes array here. So there we have defined three routes. First is for default route. We are saying that if we encounter default route, redirect to bank route. And if the user is at bank route, activate the bank component. If the user is at login route, activate the login component. And I will explain what are bank and login component. Then like we are importing browser module, HTTP client module, forms module, and router module, and we tell router module to use these routes. So that's it. Then let's go to bank component. In the bank component, bank.component.html, yeah, here. So I will explain what this authenticated method is. Thus, it is a method which will tell whether the user is logged in or not. If the user is not logged in, we will display this text. Otherwise, we will display this welcome to our bank and all this form, which was present in the previous video as well. That's it. So we moved that logic from app component to bank component. So now this is the authenticated method. So it is simply returning the authenticated variable from app service, and we are injecting app service here. Now what this app service does, I will explain that in a bit. Let's look at login component. So in the login component.html, we have a form with username and password. So we go to login, we have this form, username, password, and when we click on sign in button, we are calling this method handle sign in submit, and we are just printing credentials to the screen, and credentials include username and password. So that is it for now. Okay, now let's see what's in the app service. So this is the app.service.ts. So here we have a boolean variable authenticated, which tells whether the current user is authenticated or not. And we are using HTTP client here, so we are injecting it using constructor. Now here we have a method fetch authentication state. This method will fetch the authentication state from the backend. So it will do a get request to user endpoint, and if it is success and we have some name in the response, then authenticated will be true, otherwise authenticated will be false. And if you go to app.component.ts is here, we are using this method of app service authenticated. If it returns true, that means, or if, yeah, response, if not response, yeah, so if it returns false, or if it throws any error, then we will redirect the user to login component, which is happening here. Yes. So we will go to this URL, press enter, and we are automatically redirecting to login. Now you might be wondering, like, we logged in, but then why is it giving that we are not logged in? So let's see in the inspect network, and let's refresh the page again, and you can see we are sending a request to user endpoint, and since there is no user endpoint in our backend, we are throwing an error, and Angular app receives the error, and it uh, treat it as the user is not logged in, and that is the desired behavior as well. So first of all, what I will do is I will remove this CSRF. In the previous video, to send post request, we removed the CSRF protection by disabling it. So now I will remove this line so that CSRF protection is in place, and instead of form login, I will say basic HTTP basic authentication scheme. I will use this one and restart the server. So that is done. Now let's open it in private window. I will go to localhost 8081, and we can see the pop-up to enter username and password. Now, if you see, we don't want that because we want to implement the login functionality in Angular app itself, because in our app there may be some routes where we want the user to go even if he is even if he or she is not logged in. But there may be some routes where we don't want user to go without authentication. So that we want to handle the authentication state in our Angular app. We don't want server to handle that. So for that, we want that our Spring security should allow some resources even without logged in. And what are those resources? And so I will use a request matcher here, and in the request matcher we can provide any number of patterns which we want Spring security to ignore. So I will say just don't and I will say dot permit all. Permit all the request with this slash endpoint or with star.html. With that means don't block any HTML, JavaScript or CSS, and star.ico. ICO is I think favicon image, and then like let's say bank endpoint. So don't block these requests. I will run the app again. Now if I refresh it, you can see we still get this page. And why is that? Let's see. Click on cancel. So inspect network. Go here again. Now you can see we are getting 200 for everything except this user. When I cancel for user, we are because we are sending a request to user endpoint. Even if the user endpoint is not present, we are still getting 401 error here. Also, we are getting www authenticate as basic. So I've already explained that whenever we see this response header, then browser will automatically open a and pop up to enter username and password. So that's why we are getting that pop up. Now, how to get rid of this response header? To do that, we need to tell the backend to not send this response header. And for that, we need to send a request header to the backend while making this request. Now let's see how to do that. So if let's search. So and the the header which we want to send is www. Sorry, it's like x requested by or something. So I will search x requested with this header. Hmm, this header. So if so this is the header key x requested with, and this is its value. So for this header, if we send this value, then backend will not send that www, that authenticated header, which was this one. Yeah, the www authenticate. So backend will not send this response header back. It will send status code 401, but it won't send that header. Let's do that now. How to, and we want to send this. We want to send this request header to backend with every request. Now that means we want to intercept each outgoing request from Angular. And to do that, we create something called HTTP interceptor. So if you want, you can read more about HTTP interceptors here. I will put the link in the description. So let's go to here. So this is the interceptor. I already created this file xhr-http-interceptor.service.ts. Now here, this is the class. So yeah, we need to implement one interface called HTTP interceptor, and this has this method intercept. so that we can modify anything like headers or body of the any request. Now we are cloning the original request and we are adding this additional header. This is the header and this is its value. And then we are saying the next interceptor or next handler to handle this cloned request. And that and we are done. But we need to inject it. So I will say injectable and app.module.ts will inject this interceptor. Go to app.module.ts and in the providers we want to provide HTTP interceptor. And since there can be more than one HTTP interceptors, so multi will be true. And I can use class XHR interceptor service. I will save it. So here if you see, we don't see any X requested with header in the request. But now if we refresh it, we can see this request. So here we are sending this X requested with XML HTTP request. And in the response header, we don't see www authenticate header. That means it's working. But we are getting 401 because we are not authenticated. So let's see how to create a uh, endpoint in backend. So the endpoint should be, we have already seen app.service. And endpoint should be /user. And it should return the currently authenticated user. So in the controller, let's create another controller. I'll say auth controller. Auth controller. And let's make it REST controller. And create a method here, public, and it will return principal. We have already seen in the previous videos that whenever you used principal in our controller, it will be currently authenticated user. So we need return principal. Let's call it me, and here we can say principal user, and then we can return the user itself. And user has property like name, and we are checking for that name property in the Angular code. Here you can see we are checking for this name only. And here I will say the get mapping and there. Let's restart the server. And let's again inspect network. Okay, we again see 401 because we are not logged in, that's why it's returning 401. Now let's go ahead and implement the login functionality. For now, let's enter username here. It's a Java Rush, password PWS, click on sign in, and we can see we are just logging it here. But we need to log in the user. Now let's create that authenticate method in app.service.ts only. So I will say, so now to authenticate as well, we need to send the request to the same endpoint. But this time we will send username and password in authorization header. Why are we sending in authorization header? Because we have configured HTTP basic security. And I've already explained that how HTTP's basic authentication mechanism works. It it needs username colon password and base 64 of that in the authorization header. So let's do that. So I will just copy This code I will paste it here. Now fetch authentication state, this will be sign in, or authenticate, whatever. Let's say authenticate. Now it will return promise of boolean, right? So whether it has been authenticated or not. We can return anything. We can return user as well. Let's keep it boolean for now. Now await new promise. Now, but it will this time it will take the credentials, right? What is the username and password of the user? So let's do that. Credentials, and it will be username string, password string. So this is the type of credentials. We don't need comma here. Okay. So now also we will send the get information only, but this time we will send some headers. So this is the option, and headers. In headers we will send authorization header. So authorization, and this is the key, and its value will be basic plus base 64 of username and password. That means POA, and let's say username. So username will be credentials dot username colon credentials dot password. And why are we getting this error here? No overload matches this call. Headers. Okay, we need to create headers. So let's create headers. So cons headers equal to HTTP headers. Okay, let's see what is the type of headers. Headers has type HTTP headers. Okay, headers HTTP headers. Let's put it there. Will that work? Type of HTTP headers is not callable. Did you mean to include a new? Yeah, new. Yes, new HTTP headers here, and parsing expected. Okay, yeah, this is key, and this is the value. So the key colon value. The quoted property authorization found. Okay, let's remove the quote. Yeah, because it's JavaScript, so we don't need the quotes here. And headers will be headers, headers. And since it's duplicate, so we can quick fix it. Okay, so now we are sending headers as well with authorization, basic, and this thing. Now it will be able to log in the user. Save it, and let's go to login.component.ts. Now apart from logging the credentials to the console, let's call that service. So I will say app service, but we don't have app service here. So let's use constructor private app service here. So here we will see something, and quick fix. Okay, disable for this line, and read only. This is read only property because we are not going to modify the app service here. And app service dot authenticate, it will take credentials, so we can provide credentials, and we can say dot then. So we will get boolean only. So After login, what we want to do is, if the login is successful, we want the user to go to bank URL. Let's say dot then. Okay, we get value. So value can be true or false. So if value, then this dot, not this dot, this dot. Now we to do routing, we need a service called router here. So let's do that. Private router. Okay, okay, router. We have router here. Now this dot router dot navigate by URL, and URL will be bank, or we can um, send it to default location, and we already know that default will be redirected to bank, because that's what we have specified in app.module. So in the app.module.ts, we specified that if the path is uh, empty, then the path then redirect to bank. That means okay. So that's done. Now let's say void here. Okay, what are the quick fix? They fix the problem. What is the promise must be awaited? Okay, let's say await. Await is not working. And with equal to dot catch. Okay, we need dot catch. Catch means there has been some error. So if there is an error, for now let's just log the error, or console.error. Remove this and fix all auto fixable problems. Okay, that's it. So now I think it should work. Now we have something else here. Consider changing the type only to regular import. Okay, instead of type, let's do regular import, and we can just disable the warning there. Okay, so we saved it and it has been, yep, rebuilt successfully. Let's go here. Now since we are not logged in, we are redirected to login page. Let's put username, password, click on sign in. Okay, you can see in the network we send the request to user, and this time we sent this in the request header. Authorization, we sent this header, and in the response we got this back, name Jawaras. This is the user, currently authenticated user, and we have been redirected to our bank again. Okay, so that's how we log in using username and password in the uh, request headers. Here we used request headers to send authorization header, which includes our username and password, and with each request it will have username and password in its request header. So in the next video, what we will do is, instead of authenticating using request header, we will try to authenticate using cookies. So for the first time, we will send username and password in the request body, and for the all upcoming request, we will use cookie to send request. That we will do in the next video. Also, we will implement logout functionality in the next video. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Bye.